Ladies and gentlemen, let's GameWorksVR video. We have a bit of a GPU news roundup. I suppose you could say it's an amalgamation of joy. Well, that's probably pushing it a bit too far, but we're going to start out with the Radeon 300 series as always, because, well, there always seems to be some Radeon 300 news at the moment, with the cards so close to being released. And the second thing we're going to discuss is Nvidia's GameWorks, because Nvidia are also pushing towards virtual reality SDKs. So we'll go into that in just a second. There's been a leak starting out with the 380. Now the 380 leak, and I emphasize the word leak because I'm not 100% convinced it's a leak. I think it's more of a PR-y, markety, spinny type of thing. But effectively, the 380 has been leaked by Gigabyte, or someone's leaked it, and whatever. The fact of the matter is, though, the 380 is most likely going to be a rebranded Tonga. More specifically, the Tonga Pro, and it's going to have an additional 2 GB of memory. For those of you keeping score, that means 1792 stream cores, you've got 32 ROPs, blah blah blah. Effectively, it's the same card, just with additional memory, which is fine, there's no issues there. And it looks like there's 390X stuff as well, but there's not much apart from branding. All we know is there's going to be a 390 and 390X, and that's it. And both are going to be coming with good old 8 GB of GDDR5 memory. So, yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. I'm not particularly unhappy, to be totally honest, with the rebrands, as long as there's a purpose behind them. It's possible we might see slightly more aggressive clocks, but obviously at the end of the day it's a bit early to know this stuff at the moment. But what else? I did promise you more shinies, didn't I? Well, we have a GameWorksVR. I don't really need to tell you who that's by. So, this has actually been released alongside, or announced alongside, the GTX 980 Ti. And Nvidia notes this is going to be GameWorksVR. Combines the features we announced back in GDC 2015 under the banner of VR Direct with new and enhanced capabilities. There's going to be a bunch of shiny stuff. Nvidia multi-res shading, which is a rendering techniques for virtual reality. With MSR, basically each part of the image is rendered at a resolution to better match the final displayed VR image, and it's could be kind of cool because theoretically we should be getting a performance, or gamers should receive a performance benefit. There's VR SLI, which pretty much means that each GPU can assign eye-specific rendering tasks. So let's assume you've got 2 GPUs, and well, you've got 2 eyes, right? Unless, you know, you've had a horrible accident or something. Then GPU A will render for I1 and GPU B will render for I2 in a nutshell. Obviously, things start going a bit pear-shaped if you've got, say, 4 GPUs, but you can kind of see how that works. It's basically affinity. So it will set an affinity for a specific GPU for a specific purpose. Pretty cool. Context priority is basically enables the control over the GPU scheduling. So this is pretty much for time warping, cut latency. A really simple example of that is, hey, let's say that you move your head up to the right. The worst thing, and it does get a bit nauseating, if there's a slight amount of latency, because basically, if you keep getting different amounts of latency, like, obviously it's completely and utterly exaggerated, but let's say you get 50 milliseconds, you know, moving to the right, and then suddenly you move quickly to the left, and it suddenly goes to 30 milliseconds, and you look up and it goes to like 100 milliseconds, and obviously it's just ridiculous numbers, but you get the idea. You can start getting nausea like that. So the idea of throwing compute into the works is to try and reduce this, which is kind of cool. Direct mode delivers plug-and-play compatibility for virtual reality, basically just to make things a lot easier. And then front buffer rendering lets the GPU render directly to the front buffer. Once again, this is a latency measure. It's not anything specifically that we as gamers are going to notice like extra graphical effects, but once again, it's to reduce the latency. Much of this, if you've been kind of following along with the whole VR hype train, is very much like AMD's Liquid VR. In fact, much of this much of these features are the same. I'm not obviously accusing anyone of anything, I'm just saying I kind of think that most of this stuff is just pretty much, yeah, it's going to be required. I would be very curious though on how easy most of this stuff is going to be to integrate, and obviously it's far too easy to even ask developers at this point with DirectX 12. In other words, for example, multi-GPU rendering and affinity and so on is kind of part of the DirectX 12 spec. Not quite to this degree. Maybe in the future the SDKs will become less important anyway as DirectX 12 becomes more robust with virtual reality, but obviously it's a bit early to make those decisions or ideas yet. It's still kind of early. I guess when you look at how taxing the Oculus Rift is, and obviously the requirements are really going to depend on the game, but you need something along the lines of a mid-range CPU, something like an i5 or whatever, and you're going to need a GTX 970 or a 290, something like that. That's what Oculus have said. Hey, this is what you need. You're also going to require, like, you know, USB ports, Windows 7 and HDMI and all that crap, but that's just pretty obvious stuff. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the bit of a roundup. The reviews for stuff are going well. As you know, I've got the phone review up. I've got a DirectX 12 AMD analysis in the works, and at the moment I'm doing a CPU and motherboard review. And I know some of you are like, hey, where is it? I've had a message actually asking me, is it going to be up this weekend? Probably not this weekend. I'm probably going to be doing it over the next couple of days. After work, and it's probably going to be up Friday at this point. Apologies for the delay. There is a couple of reasons behind it. One, as I mentioned, Windows is being an absolute pain to me. I think it's to do with the fact it's a technical preview, and so driver revisions are really, really a problem. Not really for AMD. I've actually had the same problem with Nvidia and AMD. I've tried a couple of different cards, and the desktop is really fighting me with the resolution, so I'm probably going to have to do a fresh install with a different version of the technical preview and update in a different way or something like that, as it's being really, really finicky. I'm thinking maybe it didn't install 100% correctly, or maybe I should do some updates or something like that. I'm playing around with it. The second thing is I'm also figuring out my own methodologies. If I've been given hardware to review, which I have, I don't want to just put something out and then just be like, there you go, that's a review, because that's just shit and amateur. So if I'm going to do the review, which I'm going to, I would rather put in the extra effort, make sure that it's all fine with DirectX 12 testing, with multi-thread testing, which, to be honest with you, is what most people give a crap about now, not really so much single-thread stuff. And I also want to look through the motherboard, test out things such as memory latency, how much of a difference it makes, and so on and so forth. In other words, my own methodology, this is kind of like my test platform to figure out how I want to do reviews. I've got a crap ton of photos, actually really good photos, considering this comes down to the fact that the LG phone that I was given for review, which is the G4, check out the review, initial review. I'm still want to do more on that review, but once again, I had the phone for 2 days, want to put up something just to see, hey, this is a cool phone, but simultaneously I don't want to just be like, that's it, because I really want to test the phone in more conditions, specifically more signal intensive areas like underground, trains, that type of thing, and also the camera more. But anyway, the camera on the phone is actually really good, and it's meant that I'm actually using it rather than a normal stills camera, funnily enough. It's actually considerably a notch above it, so the photos for the motherboard and stuff are actually quite beautiful and rather artistic, might I add. Anyway, I'm going to go because I've still got many things to do and I've got to be up fairly early in the morning, unfortunately. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.